Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Aaron Chalner here for Forever Football DRFC, your Doncaster Rovers fan channel, and welcome to another Rovers and Rivals, a show where we speak to people inside the football industry about what's going on in football in general. Now, of course, with the appointment of Gary McSheffrey yesterday, we did the live stream, the Daily Reports live about the appointment, the positives, the negatives, give fans their opinions, and we're here with Stuart Rayner from the Yorkshire Post. Stuart, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Aaron. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. So obviously, first of all, the big question is, what is your sort of overall opinion on the appointment of Gary McSheffrey? Is it a risk, especially with the position we were in the relegation zone, or are they thinking long term with this?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like a sort of long-term appointment, which is a risk because they probably need a short-term appointment in terms of staying up in the division. You know, it feels like they've obviously gone for someone who knows the club very well, knows the sort of underlying issues in the club, so that's important. I mean, he should at least, I say, hit the ground running. He's already been in the job a few weeks, hasn't he? But at least he doesn't have that sort of settling in period that a new manager would have. You know, he should be ready to go on Monday as soon as the transfer window effectively opens in terms of cracking on with that. So that's a good sign. I think didn't see your stream the other day, but I'm guessing it's probably a bit of an underwhelming feeling around a lot of the fans. Not really the sort of name you want. You know, he's a very intelligent bloke, Gary McSheffrey, but he's not the most forceful of personalities. You know, he's not somebody who's going to come in and put a bomb under these players. He's going to try and sort of coax the best performances out of them. So it feels like a little bit more of the same, just trying to do it a little bit better. So that is a risk, you know, in the longer term. Perhaps, I mean, it's always difficult because, you know, as fans, even as the media, you're always pushing a club to do better, to push the boat out. We always want signings in a transfer window, but I guess it's kind of got to be balanced with the reality of a pandemic. And, you know, much as I do think they do need new signings, they can't push it so hard that the whole future of Doncaster Rovers is at risk. You know, so we might have to accept that it is going to be not quite the transfer window that we're hoping from Doncaster Rovers, and, you know, in the same way, maybe not quite the managerial appointment, but that's kind of where Rovers are at the moment, and it's just a case of making the most of it. I mean, it's not going to be any different. I'm sure this is Gary McSheffrey now for the rest of the season. He just needs, and these young players in particular, just need all the support they can get from the boardroom and from the terraces. That was something he sort of emphasised when he spoke to the media yesterday. He knows he's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. He accepts that, but he kind of just asked the fans, look, give yourselves a couple of days to get your head around it, and please just get behind me, because everyone wants Doncaster Rovers to stay up.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what I got from Gary McSheffrey's first interview. He wants to do it. He's honoured to be in the manager's job, and he wants to try and get the best out of his squad. Obviously, one of the things he said as well, as in terms of his support staff, he definitely wants Frank Sinclair as assistant manager. He wants to keep him on board as assistant manager. I mean, Frank Sinclair was such a lively, passionate person on the touchline. How much of an impact will Frank Sinclair have as an assistant manager if he's the one that's appointed? Because, of course, he's a former Chelsea legend. Gary McSheffrey was the youngest debutant in the Premier League for about 4 years until Aaron Lennon at Leeds United in 2003. I mean, that sort of Premiership knowledge that McSheffrey has, that Sinclair has, how much could that come in handy on the touchline when delivering the younger players and the experienced players the knowledge to try and stay in this league?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I'd hold too much store by the Premier League experience per se, but I just think the personality, you know, what we said there about Gary McSheffrey, you know, we're all human beings. Nobody's the full package. Everyone's got strengths and weaknesses. So it's about finding an assistant who makes up for your weaknesses and has different strengths. And that sort of passionate side of Frank Sinclair, which, as you say, I mean, it's obvious. You just see him in the technical area. It gives you the right combination. I mean, the thing that combination is lacking then is managerial experience, and McSheffrey's talked about having a mentor to call on. He clearly needs a bit of extra experience around him, but it looks like a good personality mix. You know, you've got You've got an attacker in McSheffrey. You've got Sinclair, a defender. So hopefully you should be able to organise all sides of the all sides of the team. From that side of it, that does look like a good combination and a good choice. And it's obviously been working for the last few weeks. He's been enjoying it. The players have been enjoying it. So why change that, frankly?
Yeah, 100%. And speaking about this mentor, then, who realistically would you think could come in and do a good job as a mentor? Who do you think could come in and help give McSheffrey and Sinclair that experience?
Well, I just think whoever it is, it needs to be someone that Gary McSheffrey trusts. So probably someone he's worked with before, although not necessarily, and B, someone who's done a lot of management and can just be there at the end of the phone. We might never ever see this mentor. He might just be someone at the end of the phone. He's not going to be on the Doncaster Rovers payroll. So lots of managers have lots of people, even experienced managers, who they can just pick the phone up to and just bounce ideas off, have a bit of advice. If it's someone who's done the rounds, we've seen people like Lenny Lawrence has sort of fulfilled that sort of role at places like Cardiff. Anyone really who can just have pass on a little bit of experience, and Gary McSheffrey can pick the phone up and say, I've never been in this position before, and this guy can say, well, actually I have, and this is how we got out of it, or this is how things got worse, or what have you. It doesn't really matter, and it doesn't really matter if he has 20 people who he just calls once a month, or one guy who is constantly on the phone to. So long as he's getting that advice and it's giving him the confidence really that he's making the right decisions, then that's great. And there might be quite a few people, because he strikes you as a very likable guy, Gary McSheffrey. I find it hard to see people falling out with him. So he's probably got a lot of friends within the game who are just happy to help a young manager making his first steps. And maybe they're retired, or maybe they're out of work, and they're just they're happy for that sort of low level of involvement in a football club. So if he picks the right people for advice, that's certainly going to help him. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Going into the January transfer window, then, obviously, like you said, we're probably expecting, well, the fans want to see serious amount of signings, but in this kind of situation, maybe we shouldn't expect a lot of signings in the current financial situation. But who realistically then would you look and say this would be a great signing for Rovers? Who would you, if you were Gary McSheffrey, who would you be looking at in terms of positions, but also any players that stand out? Would you break the bank for a non-league gem? Would you look higher up than League One for people that are maybe not playing as much or out of contract, like, for example, an Adam Clayton, who's been out of work since November at Birmingham City, and Adam Forshaw's at Leeds United, not really getting game time. Could he be a loan option as an experience? Who would you go for?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think Forshaw would be a realistic option, particularly with the way Leeds' squad is down to the bare bones at the moment. But a Clayton sort of personality, I think, would be more what they need. I mean, McSheffrey was talking, so I asked him after the game on Monday, will experience be sort of top of your list in terms of the players you're looking at? And he said in a couple of positions, yes. But, he was talking about it again yesterday. And he sort of said, yeah, we'll look to a few, but we might, but we might also get in a couple of talented, Premier League loan signings, Premier League or Championship loan signings. And in terms of that, or in terms of going to non-league, I don't think that's really what they need. You look at that squad, you've already got Ethan Galbraith, you've already got Matt Smith. There are those talented young players. What they need really is a spine of experience to help those lads through the difficult times. I mean, arguably last season, the issue was they had too many people in that bracket, too many young loan players, and particularly in the second half of the season, when it got to the time to dig in, A, their bodies weren't maybe up to the physical demands of playing all those games in a short period of time, and B, they knew they weren't going to be here next season. So, you sometimes wonder about the appetite. I think if they can get a couple of old stages, I mean, the best thing they could get in the transfer window is a cloning machine, so they can get another 3 Tommy Rose and just play one in defence, one in midfield, and one in attack. They need people like that. I mean, Tom Anderson's obviously a really good leader, a really good League One defender, but he's got this plantar fasciitis. it might be a struggle for him to be playing twice a week every season. And we know what he's like as a defender. He's the kind of defender who puts his head where it shouldn't be. And, players like that pick up concussions, pick up bookings, pick up red cards, So you can absolutely rely on Tom Anderson whenever he's on the field, and it'll take a lot to get him off the field. But, to put all your eggs in the basket of him playing 24 games between now and the end of the season is just difficult. So if he can, if you can get more help in that position, if you can get more in central midfield, we know they tried and failed to sign Will Grigg in August. If you could get an experienced centre forward up front, but as I sort of alluded to earlier, it's all well and good me chucking out names like this is fantasy football, but there is a budget to work to. There is the issue of, can you attract these players to a team in the situation Doncaster Rovers are in, when they may well get better offers either financially or just in terms of football elsewhere. So it's going to be difficult. I mean, we always sort of think of the transfer window as January the 1st comes and bingo, we're going to leap into it and all our problems are solved, but it doesn't quite work like that. It'll be January the 3rd for starters before the Football League start even processing these transfers. And then, unfortunately, when you're a club like Doncaster Rovers, you're near the back of the food chain. So you end up waiting for other clubs to do their deals. Even for loanees, you wait for Premier League clubs to see how COVID pans out and how injuries pans out. And you end up with the sort of scramble we saw on August the 31st. So if they can, hopefully the good, one good thing about McSheffrey being the choice is he's already had these discussions with the recruitment team. So hopefully tentative discussions have been had with some of these targets and they are ready to go quickly. But you just can't bank on it. And obviously there'll be a lot of games in January. So the sooner they can get a few people through the door, the better, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking about Tom Anderson, he's just one of, I believe, many players that's going to be out of contract in the summer. And one thing that Rovers have improved on at the start of the season when Wells was in charge was long-term contracts, giving Taylor a new deal, giving all these people new deals. Are we looking? And to be fair, before the supporters meeting, earlier in the month, there was the original meeting where the Black Bank was introduced, and they came out and said, hopefully, it's just 3 or 4 signings next season. That was when Wells was in charge. Are we looking here once again at another brand new squad next season, whether we stay up or not, or are we looking at maybe just a couple of signings in the summer?
I think by appointing Gary McSheffrey, we're not looking at a big overhaul. I think, if you look at his strengths, one of his big strengths is he knows the youth system and he's good at developing young players. So I think Rovers are going to be looking more in the coming seasons to develop people like Ben Blythe and Liam Ravenhill, rather than getting other players in and developing them for other clubs. So that would suggest fewer signings. Just as I say, just the financial realities of it would suggest fewer signings. But then again, if relegation happens, there could just naturally be a big overhaul of people wanting to leave and needing to get people in. But I think the plan is to have a bit more stability. Gavin Baldwin talked before as Richie Wellens came in about we want to be less reliant on loan signings, and it didn't quite go to plan. Still ended up getting 5 in, but I think that's the direction they're looking at, having less of a churn. Frankly, less of a managerial churn as well. Although it's kind of a mixed bag, that one, because you want managers to do well enough that other clubs are sniffing around them, just like you do with players. But I think they are looking to get more stability. So if things go to plan, and that is an if, I can't see things being ripped up again in the summer.
Yeah, and sort of lastly, do we think Rovers are going to stay up? And you were speaking about the manager sort of turnaround. This is the 4th manager in this calendar year. Yeah. Could Gary McSheffrey be the right one? And do you think Rovers could have a chance of staying up, depending on how January goes? Because it is very make or break.
Yeah, I think you've always got a chance, and we see it all clubs all the time where a manager will come in and fans will be about, who's he? Why have they got him in? Arson who, or what have you? And it turns out to be a great appointment. So we shouldn't be lulled into the fact, to be frank, although he was sort of denying this, he looks like a cheap option. He looks like a safe option. He's inexperienced. He's a quiet man. But none of those things mean he can't be a success.
Mm.
It's a really difficult position. If I was betting on it, I wouldn't be betting on Doncaster Rovers staying up. But there's 24 games to go. There's a 6-point gap to make up. It is not the end of the world. There is plenty of talent in that squad. If they can get the right experience to bring the best out of those players, I think they've got a chance. Obviously, it's not just signing these players, it's keeping them fit as well, because that's the other issue. You mentioned people like Adam Clayton, and it's great, but we saw with John Bostock in January, you're bringing a player who hasn't played much or at all in some cases for half a year, and they're going to be vulnerable to injuries. They're going to take time to get up to speed, so they have to be careful with that side bit as well. But if they can get the right people round, I think there's enough talent there. I just worry about, what I saw on Monday about them all being lumped in together without that support. Then you worry for them. Then you fear that they're going to be exposed with an inexperienced manager and a difficult situation. So I think we'll be in a much better position to decide whether we're optimistic or pessimistic about Doncaster Rovers about a month from now when we see what they've done in the transfer market. I'm not bursting with optimism that they're going to make great signings. We've certainly got to give them the chance, and it's really important that the fans do get behind whoever comes in, because that's who they've got, and nobody on the terraces wants Doncaster to go down. So really, people just need to do all they can to get behind them and hope for the best, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. It's sort of a bonus question, really, because I think there's a lot of fans asking about the ownership at the football club. Are they right for this club, etc. If, let's say, for example, January isn't a great one and we finish bottom of the league and we, either Gary McSheffrey leaves or he walks or something like that, and there's going to be a massive new change again in the summer, is the ownership at the club, in terms of their position, should the fans be, wanting change, or are you looking at the ownership of the club and thinking they're running the club quite well?
I think you've got to just look at any football club and their ownership and just ask yourself: is there a long-term plan? Can I see where this club is going? And at the moment, it doesn't leap out at you, oh, this is brilliant, this is definitely going to work out, I've got real faith in this ownership. But we're just about to have a new start, so you've got to judge them on what they produce, really, and whether they learn the lessons of the mistakes they clearly have made. We might be saying in 6 months from now, oh, they've learned the lessons by bringing through a guy and bringing through their own players. They've really learned from that. Or we might be saying, well, they've fallen into the same mistake they made in appointing Andy Butler and going for inexperienced internal appointments. The signs are, not great, but we have to wait and see how things pan out now, and they could well prove us wrong. But there's one thing saying these owners are not right for the club, we want rid of them, and I totally understand that. I share that view with certain football clubs, but then the next question is, well, who's going to take them on instead?
Mm.
You see the difficulty. Obviously, they've got huge problems, but the difficulty Derby County are having selling the club. It's one thing to want the owners out. It's another thing to actually get them out, because you need someone else to come in. So, as I say, I think we've just got to look at this as a fresh start. Give them a month to show us what they can do. Get behind them as best they can. Really hope Gary McSheffrey can show all his best qualities and turn them around and judge them at the end of the season. But the judgment will be harsh if they go from effectively looking pretty strong to contenders for even automatic promotion this time last year to dropping out of League One. That you can only pass a very harsh judgment on an ownership, a management, a playing squad that is responsible for that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Stuart, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
No problem. My pleasure, Aaron. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe. And for now, I'm Aaron Chandler from Thrower Football DRFC. Keep living the Rovers life, and that, my friends, full-time Rovers side. Thank you very, very much, and I will see you all later.
Rovers